Carolina had to get a win Saturday, and that's what they did.
This is Tyler Hansbrough, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Monday, February 10th, 2025. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. You're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or watch of the day. I want to thank you for being here. Special shout out to all you everydayers, all the Locked On Tar Heels Discord members, and of course, our great insiders. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. All right, look, we got a ton to get to today, trying to fly through so we can get to all of it because we got to wrap up the Pitt game again. We got to look ahead to Clemson, a lot to get to there, and it's a critical moment tonight. And then the weekend whip around as well. So boom, 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 boom. We won't go too far in deep on Pitt since we did a lot of that in our postcast wrap up after the game Saturday. So no Four Corners recap, no Four Corners preview, but we're going to talk about both of them. We're going to get into it. But here's where we're going to start with the Pitt game. The Tar Heels just literally just needed to win this game. I don't care if it was by 8 million points and RJ Davis hit 84,000 threes from beyond half court, or if they won by 1 point like they actually did. That's what had to happen, and it did. Carolina needed one of these two games between hosting Pitt on Saturday and going to Clemson tonight. And they did it. That's what they did. They won. Now, it gives you the opportunity to really do yourself a favor by going to Clemson tonight and winning that game as well. Kind of takes the monkey off your back. It's like if you're at the free throw line and you just need one of the two to ice the game and make it a 2-possession game, you'd always just rather make the first. And then it's like, pressure's off for the second one, right? It's like Carolina, absolutely. We would love both of these wins. 100%. It puts you in a great place if you do. But to get the first one, man, that is massive to be able to do. And it's funny, I had a couple people ask me after this game, basically like, Isaac, how did you survive that game? I can't believe it. Like, Carolina drops this lead and the whole thing. And my response is just basically like, because that's the baseline at this point. You know what I'm saying? Like, Carolina has been doing this all season long. Close game after close game after close game after comeback after letting leads go, all of this stuff. At this point, I compared it to, in Ocean's 11 or Ocean's 12 or 13, one of the three movies in that trilogy. One of the guys, I think it's Casey Affleck, like Ben's brother, or maybe no. It's the first movie. It's Ocean's 11, and it's the guy that's like the tech guy, and he's all nervous all the time, right? And he's got to take a lie detector test. So to set the baseline, what he does is like squeezes a tack into the palm of his hand so that it seems like that's his normal. And then everything else is like, oh yeah, this guy's fine. That's where we're at. These close games, that's our normal. You guys, that's our resting heart rate, is the palpitations of every close game we've experienced. The blowouts one way or the other, it's like, oh, what is this? A game won or lost by more than a possession? I'm unfamiliar with such a thing. Can you explain it to me? Right? Like, that's who we are. So let's talk about those close games, because now for the 9th time in Carolina's 12 ACC games, with 3 minutes to go in this game, the score was within one possession with 3 minutes to go. I mean, it's just bonkers. 9 of the 12 ACC games. The other 3 were the loss to Duke last Saturday, and then the bigger wins for Carolina over both Cal and SMU. And now the Tar Heels have set a North Carolina program record for the most one-possession games in an entire season. Entire season. We've still got 8 regular season games to go, and then however many playoff games. So you got to assume you're going to play a couple more one-possession games, right? And by one possession, we just mean within 3 points ahead or behind, because assuming a three-pointer could tie it up or go ahead, right? Like that. So that's what we mean. 3 points either way by one possession. So Carolina has played 10 of those games that have finished within 3 points one way or the other. They're 6-4 in those games, so they've gotten above 500 record. Those games, they lost at Kansas by 3. They beat Dayton and Maui by 2. They lost to Michigan State and Maui by 3. They beat Georgia Tech by 3, UCLA by 2, Notre Dame by 1, and NC State by 2. So there's a string of 4 straight games that Carolina won of these. And then the Stanford loss by 1. Followed the next Tuesday by the Wake loss by 1. Those 2 games, by the way, are the 2 that are really haunting me right now. You turn those around, might feel a good bit different. And then the win over Pitt by 1. 10 games decided by 1 possession or less. It's it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And I would love for that to no longer be our baseline. So please, Tar Heels, do us all a favor and just win big. Hold on to leads for the love of everything holy. All right. There are some yays, some boos, and some mixed bags I want to talk about from the Pitt game. So while we're not doing 4 corners recap, I thought we'd have yay, boo mixed, right? The yays. There are 4 things I want to mention that we didn't specifically say after the game on Saturday. So the first yay, RJ Davis. We talked about his 3-point percentage and how good his shooting has been in the past 6 games now. Let's talk about his all-around shooting, because it's not just from beyond the arc. It's everywhere. In total, his shooting in the last 6 games, he's 36 of 77 from the floor. That's 46.8%. If you separate it out to 2-point field goals, which, by the way, I'd kind of like to normalize just having the 2-point field goal percentage in the box score as well. We've got field goal percentage. We've got 3-point field goal percentage. I want the 2. I don't want to have to do math to get there, which is what I had to do to give you these numbers. You know what I'm saying? I'm lazy. Give it to me. Box score. Anyway, RJ from 2 over the last 6 games, 48.8%. He's 20 of 41 from the field. From 3, we talked about this after the game Saturday, but I'll remind you, he is 44.4% from beyond the arc the last 6 games combined, 16 out of 36. And from the free throw line, he missed one on Saturday, but he's 20 of 22 from the free throw line in the past 6 games. That is 90.9%. So that's a yay. RJ Davis, his shooting, man, is ticking up in a big way. Then Allen Lubin, this is our second yay. We talked about what a great game he had, but what I want to point out specifically is very similar to RJ Davis. Have you noticed how efficient Van Allen Lubin has been from the field this year? It's like what Jalen Washington was doing last year. This will tell you everything you need to know about Van Allen Lubin's shooting percentage. He went 8 of 12 from the field on Saturday, and his field goal for the season, his field goal percentage for the season went down. That's how efficient he's been this year. It dropped to just under 70% at 69.9%. We could round up, but I mean, that's crazy stuff from Van Allen Lubin. And I loved Carolina's intentionality to get him the ball inside. We'll see if they can do that again tonight. Next, yay, Drake Powell. He did have the one bad shot, that kind of deep step back, forced mid-range. I was like, I don't know about that one, Drake Powell. But I think it was his very next 2 shots after that were 2 critical threes that he made to help Carolina in this game. And all around, Drake Powell, if you look at his stats the last 3 games, has been very good as well. I'm pulling back up. So his last 3 games, he's averaged 10 points a game. He's shot, I'm trying to do this math in real time here. 4 times 3 is 12. 8 and 8 is 16. 12 for 21 from the field. 4 of 9 from 3. 2 of 3 from the free throw line. I mean, it's just really good stuff shooting from Drake. The shooting for multiple Tar Heels you see here has gone well lately. There just needs to be more of it and more consistency and more from other guys. By the way, I was struggling Saturday because Tyler Nickel had a game for Vandy. He's like 4 of 7 from 3. And I was just like, can you imagine? Like, basically, that's what Cade Tyson was supposed to do. Can you imagine if Tyler Nickel was still here doing that for the Tar Heels? Was so sad. The last yay I want to say before I get to a couple boos is Seth Trimble had 2 different ridiculously athletic putbacks. It was basically the same thing. The first one, he just drove Jae'lyn low. Carolina was kind of like abusing Jae'lyn low defensively. He gets to the rim, gets it up, it bounces right back, and Seth's back up off the floor again before anybody else and just gently lays it in over the top of the rim for 2. Basically the same thing on that other tip. I mean, it's just like Those are the things that Seth Trimble can do that most other people on the court simply cannot. It's unbelievable. I'm so happy for Seth to see those, like that athleticism is what we were missing so much. The Tar Heels were missing when he was out. A couple boos from the Pitt game. Scoring droughts. Carolina had a nearly 5-minute or more scoring drought in both halves of this game. In the first half, Carolina scored 24 points in the first when there was 10:30 left. So in the first 9.5 minutes of the game, you're on pace for over 100 points at that moment. As a reminder, Carolina scored 67 for the game because they scored just 11 in the final 10.5 minutes of the game, including a scoring drought that they scored at 6:41, didn't have a point again until 1:47 left on the clock. That's a drought of 4 minutes and 54 seconds. In the second half, Carolina scored at 15:48, a field goal, had another field goal at 9:41. That's a span of 6:07. They did have one made free throw in there, so we'll call it a span of 6:07 with no field goals, but just 1 point. So to have two droughts of this game that basically totaled a quarter of the game. I mean, good grief. I guess it's like the good part of it is you say, we did all that and still won? Wow. But those are the things. Those are the things that you look at and it's like, that's why Carolina's inconsistency is what it is, because there are those lulls pretty regularly. Part of the reason for the lull is the second boo I want to mention. Elliot Cadeau picked up 2 first-half fouls again. He has done so in more than half of the ACC games, 7 of the 12 games. The first half drought almost precisely coincided with that. It started a few minutes after he had to go to the bench. And I say that like it feels more like I'm dumping on Elliot. I say it because his presence as the point guard is so critical for this team. Carolina has to have him on the floor. So again, I've said it, but I'm going to keep saying it. We got to figure out a way to help Elliot stay away from those. We want to win. The mixed bag things. I loved the scrappiness at the end of this game. That possession where Van Allen Lubin, there's 18 seconds left on the clock, something like that. Van Allen disrupts the inbound pass from right in front of the Pitt bench. Seth goes diving after it twice. Drake goes diving after it. It's like, that's great. Where is that feistiness? Where is that scrappiness before the game is imminently on the line? Similar to Elliot, how do we find a way to help the Tar Heels, and by we, I mean themselves and the coaching staff, find a way to exhibit that level of life or deathness of this game at all moments? Because that's the situation Carolina's in. And then finally, with mixed bag, fast break points. Carolina only was only credited with at least 5 fast break points in this game. That was the lowest total of the season. The previous low was 7. In fact, this was only the 3rd time all season in 24 games that the Tar Heels have had just single-digit fast break points. The good thing, though, is that they held Pitt to 0. Pittsburgh had 0 fast break points in this game. And why do I say this is a mixed bag? Because it's kind of similar to what I said about the scoring droughts. It's like, hey, Carolina, who has really struggled to score efficiently in the half court this season, have really needed to go out and go to have good offensive games, were able to win with only scoring 5 fast break points. So there is that silver lining with it. Now, with all that, again, Carolina simply needed to win this game, and that's what they did. The thing now is that if you want to play more meaningful games this season, you got to win a critically meaningful game tonight at Little John Coliseum. This is potentially the most critical 53 hours of the entire season for the Tar Heels. We'll talk about that in just a second. Hey, right after I tell you about FanDuel, when the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. And there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off, or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. It doesn't matter. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. It's great because when you win, you get paid instantly from FanDuel. Really helpful. As you look ahead to this game, FanDuel's line is Clemson -5.5 over the Tar Heels. It's actually a little bit closer than I thought it would be. Great opportunity for Carolina to go and win, or at least stay within the number there if you're looking to get in on that. Right now, FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com today to check it all out for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Pitt is over and done and gone. We've played them twice now, split. Okay, unless we see them again in the ACC tournament or in the NCAA tournament, should we get there and should they get there, which it seems like both of those won't happen, that's it. But now, no rest for the weary. Got to immediately turn that attention to Clemson because Carolina's playing Big Monday tonight inside Little John Coliseum. This, in my humble estimation, and I know there have been a lot of big games this season, but because of how everything else has gone, this 53 hours from tip-off of the Pitt game at 4 p.m. Eastern to the tip of this game and through its conclusion around 9:30 Eastern on tonight, Monday night, if you win both of those games, you're in great shape. Really, really good shape. So Carolina won the Pitt game. Check. You love that. Now, you got to take care of business at Clemson. Of course, they are the Tigers coming off that massive home win over Duke on Saturday. Maybe they're still flying high. Maybe they haven't come back down to earth yet. Maybe they put so much emotion and focus into doing that they don't have as much energy to expend upon the Tar Heels. Of course, they are still at home and have been for this is their third straight home game. And of course, the Tar Heels had to expend a lot of their own emotional energy to win that game Saturday at home against Pitt. So there is that. I would contend, and you can feel free to disagree with me, and I will totally hear you out, and it'll be valid. But for me, I truly believe that this game tonight against Clemson is more critical than the home game against Duke to end the regular season. Yes, Duke will be the more emotional game for us and the game that we just as passionate Carolina people want to win more. But from a post-game and resume standpoint, yes, the Duke game is a bigger resume win, although it is at home versus on the road. That changes the dynamics a little bit. But to win this Clemson game puts you in great shape. And if we're being honest, on paper, Carolina's got a better shot at winning this game at Clemson than they do beating Duke, even though it's at home. Because here's how I see it. You just beat Pitt. If you win this game and then you reel off the next 6, which at Ken Palm you're favored to do, and you have to do, quite frankly, there are no quad 1 games in there. Those are all games that you simply cannot lose. You have to win them home, road, wherever. And if you win this game tonight, combine that with Pitt and those 6 wins, that's an 8-game winning streak. You've probably already put yourself on the right side of the bubble just by avoiding losses while other teams around you are getting picked off. And then if you've done that, that renders the Duke game basically icing on the cake. Just like, hey, you're on the right side of the bubble right now, get a Duke win and you're like in. But to win these 8 games straight, which I know is asking a lot of a team that's not been consistent enough to do so. Their longest winning streak this season is 4. But if they did, they would head into the Duke game 21-10 and 14-5 in ACC play. And that way, at worst, you are 21-11, 14-6 heading into the ACC tournament. That would feel great. Because another part of it is at that point, despite the number of losses, as we sit here today, your strength of schedule helps you out in a massive way. Carolina is 11th nationally in strength of schedule. They're 6th nationally in non-conference strength of schedule, ahead of literally every other power conference team. And the good news, according to Joe Lunardi, is that the Pitt win moved Carolina from next 4 out, which is like, not first 4 out, but like 5, 6, 7, and 8 out, into that first 4 out. So now Carolina is sitting there, one of the first 4 teams out of the 68. Meaning that if you beat Clemson, you might have put yourself into at least being in the field and going to Dayton for the first 4. Not to mention, I went through and looked at everyone that Lunardi has just ahead of Carolina right now, and a bunch of them took L's this weekend. And so Carolina, again, massive chance to move up. Here's some interesting deja vu with what's happening right now. Do you remember last year, Carolina took 3 ACC losses, and it was in a span of 5 games. It was Georgia Tech before the Duke game, Clemson after the Duke game, and then what? Syracuse was the last of those. Here's what's funny. Carolina loses to Georgia Tech in Atlanta, comes home and beats Duke, and then loses to Clemson at home. You know the stretch Clemson's been in right now? Slightly different, but very similar. They hosted Georgia Tech, lost that game in triple overtime. That's the difference, is they weren't at Georgia Tech, but they lost to Georgia Tech, beat Duke at home, and then now host North Carolina, as last year Carolina hosted Clemson after Georgia Tech and Duke. Last year, Clemson came to the Smith Center desperate for a win. They were struggling, man. 14-10 overall, 7-5 in ACC play. Carolina's in a pretty similar boat right now. I'm sorry. They were 14-7, 5-6. It's Carolina this year that's 14-10, 7-5. I looked at my notes weird. And so it's like, what a similar situation that a desperate Carolina team now goes to Little John looking to clip off Clemson after they're probably still on an emotional high and worn out from that Duke game on Saturday night. Hope so. We'll see, though. Carolina's got to go and do it. Now, similar to the Pitt wrap, as I said, we're not going to do a real Four Corners preview, but I want to tell you 4 quick reasons that this matchup against Clemson is going to be no breezy walk through the park. This is going to be a tough matchup for the Heels. Let me give you 4 reasons why. Number 1, it's a tale as old as time this year. Carolina's going to have a size disadvantage. Pitt's front court, 3, 4, and 5, goes Chauncey Wiggins at 6'10.5", Ian Schieffelin, who's shorter, but really is their 4 at 6'8", and then Victor Locken, who is 6'11". So their 3, 4, and 5 are 6'8", 6'10.5", and 6'11". And their 2 guard is 6'4.5". So it's like, basically if Ian Jackson starts at the 4 again tonight, he's guarding 6'8" Ian Schieffelin. If Seth Trimble starts at the 3 as 6'3", he's guarding 6'10.5" Chauncey Wiggins. That's the kind of thing we're looking at for this game. Woo. So watch for that starting 5. Who's it going to be for Carolina? But again, Carolina faces a massive size differential for like the 4th game in a row. This to me feels like playing Alabama's front court. Pace is another thing. We just talked about how Carolina has struggled this year in games where they can't get out and run. Well, Clemson, not like Virginia levels of slow, but they want to slow it down. Carolina, is one of the upper teams nationally in terms of adjusted tempo and pace. Well, Clemson's the exact opposite. They are 342nd in the nation in adjusted tempo. That means there are 364 teams in D1. So they're in the bottom like 30, basically. So Carolina is going to have to succeed in the front court or find some key moments when they can get out and run and convert on those. That's critical as well. Number 3 reason. Clemson shoots very well from the free throw line. 78% as a team. That's 22nd in the nation. And as we know, Carolina has struggled at times this year defending without fouling. If they can do that, they're in good shape. If they send the Tigers to the line, that's a recipe for potential disaster. As would be the 4th reason I want to mention to you that this could be a really tough game for the Tar Heels is Clemson's 3-point shooting. Now, the Tar Heels actually do quite well defensively against the 3. And some of that, different people disagree on 3-point defense, basically, and how much it actually is because of the defense. So whatever, let's recognize that. So while it's not really an area that Carolina struggles with, Clemson is 15th in the nation, making 38.4% of their threes. That's insane. So between Clemson's size, their slower pace, their half-court stuff they want to do, their ability to shoot at the free throw line, and their 3-point shooting, that sounds like a recipe for disaster on paper. But Carolina, with heart and grit and tenacity and whatever else you want to throw out there, can go win this game. But they cannot do the things that they've done that have caused them to lose games or at least lose leads before hanging on late. They did just enough little things to win Saturday. That's not going to cut it on the road tonight. And that's where we're going to go next. What is Clemson bringing to the table? Who are the players that knocked off Duke on Saturday? That in the weekend whip around coming up here in just a second. All right, let's get ready for this Clemson game. Let me give you the details, predictions, and then we'll get to the weekend whip around. Carolina at Clemson tonight, Monday, February 10th. Clemson, South Carolina, Little John Coliseum. It's at 7 p.m. Eastern. Thank goodness, no more regular season 9 p.m. tips this year. It's on ESPN. As I said in the FanDuel read, FanDuel has it Clemson minus 5.5. KenPom has the line a little bigger, the Tigers by 7. As you well know, this series all-time is lopsided. Tar Heels lead at 136-24. But remember that recently Clemson ended Carolina's their 0-for. They had literally never won in Chapel Hill, and now they've won 2 of the last 3 at the Dean Smith Center. Their all-time record, though, in Chapel Hill is 2-60. So Carolina's been really good, but they've lost 2 of the last 3 to Clemson at home last year. And I think the other one was Coach Williams last year, right? That was the game that broke the streak. But interestingly, Carolina has won the last 2 games at Littlejohn on the road. So it's like the visitors have prevailed quite regularly in recent times in this series. Clemson's coach is Brad Brownell. Interestingly enough, next year, when Leonard Hamilton retires, Brad Brownell will be the longest tenured ACC coach. Kind of hard to believe, huh? So there's that. Right now, before today's new AP poll comes out, they're 26, so they were number 1 in others receiving votes. And I'm curious to see if they're ranked because obviously, as I said, they lost to Georgia Tech, but then beat Duke. And I think one of those is going to outweigh the other, but we'll see what happens. They are 30th in the net as of Sunday's refresh. I'm obviously recording this before Monday's refresh, while Carolina is 45th. This is obviously a quad 1 game for the Tar Heels, one of just 2 left on the schedule as of right now. Obviously, the net changes. So one of Carolina's last 2 chances before the ACC tournament to get another quad 1 win. They're 29th at KenPom, 21st in offensive efficiency, 42nd in D. So far, coming into this game, they're 19-5 overall, 11-2 in ACC play. Their best non-con wins, they beat Kentucky at home and both Penn State and San Francisco on a neutral floor. Their best ACC wins, obviously the win at Duke, is their crowning win of the season, but they also won at Pitt in OT, something the Tar Heels could not do. They had 3 losses in non-con, none of them bad. They lost a true road game at Boise State, who's a solid Mountain West Conference team. They lost at home to Memphis, but in overtime, and they lost at South Carolina on the road in overtime. That might be their worst loss because South Carolina hasn't won an SEC game yet, but the SEC is insane. So there's that. There are 2 ACC losses at Louisville, and then the loss at home this week to Georgia Tech in 3 overtimes. Their starters, at least their usual starters, which they've used for all but 2 games this season. So unless there's some kind of freak thing today, this is who you can expect to see. Chase Hunter. This is his 6th year in college. All of them at Clemson. So there's that. He is a 6'3.5" guard, is averaging a career high 17 points a game. He is the ACC's leading 3-point shooter from 3, 43.8% on 6 attempts a game. There are others that are shooting a higher percentage, but don't have enough 3-pointers to qualify. He's got 2.4 assists per game and 1.8 turnovers, 1.5 steals, and he's 90% from the free throw line. So again, defend without fouling. And by the way, Hunter is rolling as of late, 20 or more points in 4 of Clemson's last 5 games. And the only one he didn't is because he was sick and barely played just a couple minutes in the second half. So there's that. Their big man inside is Victor Locken. He's a Cincinnati transfer, played 3 years for the Bearcats, and now is a senior for the Tigers. 6'11", 228, 10 points a game, 6 rebounds, and just under 2 blocks a game. So there's trouble. Ian Schieffelin. We all know the chef, right? It was he and PJ Hall, the front court stalwarts last year. He's 6'8", 225, kind of undersized like Van Allen Lubin. But he gets 12.8 points a game, 9.5 rebounds, 3 assists a game as well. Ian Schieffelin, man, he is devastating. And he can also step out and hit it. So there's that. Chauncey Wiggins, 6'10.5", 205. He's a junior, 9.6 points a game, 3 rebounds. And this dude can also step out and hit it, 40.5% from 3, takes about 3.5 attempts a game. And then Boston College transfer Jaden Zachary is the other starter. He's a senior, 6'1" guard, 10.5 points, 3.2 boards, 3.2 assists, 2 steals a game. And he's also shooting over 85% from the free throw line, 86.4. So Carolina's got a lot that they got to deal with there from Clemson's starting 5. The thing is, though, Clemson does have 3 other guys that play double-digit minutes, but they utilize their bench even less than Carolina. And so, like, if you could get these guys in foul trouble, if you could find ways to run them to death, then you might be in good shape. But that is a formidable starting 5 for Clemson. So the three guys that come in off the bench, Dylan Hunter, that's Chase's brother. He's 6'3.5", 5.5 points a game. You really want to turn him into a shooter where he's under 30% from three on the season. Jake Heidebreeder is 6'5.5", 4.5 points a game. He doesn't shoot a ton of threes, but he makes them at a big clip, 45.7%. And then the other is Del Jones, a 6'2.5" guard. So my prediction for this thing, at this point, I should say, shame on me. I don't trust me. But I feel like the Tar Heels are going to get this done. I don't know what it is, but give me an RJ layup at the buzzer for a 79-78 win. How crazy would that be? Why not? Why not just dream a little? Why not have some faith and hope in this team? Tar Heels 79-78, the 11th one possession game of the season. Very quickly, we can whip around. Let's literally whip around this thing. Women's basketball paved the way. They John the Baptist this thing for the men's team on Sunday. Remember, they didn't play last Thursday. They were at Clemson yesterday, Sunday. Carolina holds on 53-51. Now they're 21-4 on the season, 9-3 in ACC play. And the ladies got a 3-game winning streak all on the road. They won both games of the California swing, remember, last week, and then get this one at Clemson. So it'll be nice to get back home soon for the ladies. Renaya Kelly led the team, 17 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. Maria Gokding and Alyssa Usby both really close to double-doubles, but not quite there. Carolina was up 49-45 with 3 to go, and it kind of looked like they'd hang on, but they make 3 free throws. They hit a 3 to go ahead. And then it's back and forth. Carolina gets a couple buckets to lead with 42 seconds to go. And then it just felt so bad for Lainey Grant. Carolina has the ball and the lead by 2. And they inbound it. And poor Lainey runs the wrong way, runs towards Clemson's basket. Oh, I felt so bad for her. But that allows Clemson to inbound the ball in the front court with 8 seconds to go. But Carolina plays really nice D. Donarski tips the initial inbound pass at the baseline. And then Carolina had a couple flat fouls to give. So Donarski fouls. They were able to take that all the way down to under 3 seconds. And then the final inbound pass, I think it was Maria Gokding, tips it. Carolina recovers and Clemson can't foul. So really good defensive stand by the Tar Heels. It kind of felt like what the men's team did at the end against Boston College there. Softball played 5 games down in Auburn this weekend, went 3-2. Both the losses were to Auburn. On Friday, lost 8-1. On Sunday, 11-1. But on Friday, blanked App State 8-0. On Saturday, beat App State again, closer 6-5. And then Southern Illinois later on Saturday, 3-0. Way to get the season started. Ladies, wrestling was at number 15 Pitt on Friday, tied 16 all, but the Heels win off a total match points criteria. So now they're 3-1 in ACC play, 7-5 overall. Women's tennis was, the big opportunity this weekend. ITA Indoor Team National Championships had a pretty convincing win over Pepperdine Friday, 4-1, and then lost for the second time this season in the quarterfinals. This was to Virginia, basically in the same way they did a couple weeks ago. They got the singles point, and it was tied 3-3 with 1 match ongoing. It came down to number 2 singles, and they're in the third set. Thea Rabman, everything's tied 5-5. Rabman gets upset, but then, broken, but then she breaks. So we go to a tiebreaker and just can't hang on in the tiebreaker. Really disappointing for the ladies, I know. And now after winning that event multiple years in a row, have now lost it twice in a row, but they're getting there. And that's a big deal with the brand new team who's rounding into form. Men's tennis got blanked at Georgia on Sunday, 4-0. Unfortunate. Women's lacrosse and men's lacrosse both kicked off their season this weekend. The women beat up on James Madison, number 18 in the country, on Friday, 14-2. And then on Sunday, they went to Liberty, 23-1, dismantling there. The men hosted Michigan on Saturday, beat up on them as well, 15-6. So really nice lacrosse weekend to start things. Swimming and diving, 2 different events ongoing this weekend. Swimming was hosting the UNC Invitational. Really good stuff there for both men and women throughout the weekend. Same was true of diving, where both Friday and Saturday, Carolina held 5 of the 6 podium positions. And then Sunday's results aren't in by the time I've recorded yet. Gymnastics hosted Clemson. A lot of wins over Clemson this weekend. Maybe that's what gives me a good foreboding about tonight. But women's gymnastics, or the only gymnastics team, we don't have men's gymnastics, hosted Clemson Sunday. Heels win 196.575 to 195.8. They've been trying to get into that 196 threshold, and they did. That's an encouraging sign. Track and field had a really successful weekend up in Virginia at 2 different events this weekend. And then fencing. The women had a good weekend at Duke in the Beguinet. I don't really know how to say that. Classic. Beating NYU, number 15 MIT, Boston College, and Air Force. And the lone loss was the number 11 Temple, 13-14. The men were in action at home on Sunday, but it's not in by the time I'm recording this. And finally, I told y'all, man, there's a bunch to get through. It's that time of year. Men's golf was out in Hawaii over the weekend, the Amir Ari Invitational. They're number 6 in the nation, and they finished second in this loaded field. Number 9, Oklahoma State won the event with a -64 total. Carolina was 5 strokes off that lead at -59. But, I mean, they were ahead of number 2, Arizona State, number 3, Auburn, number 5, Texas. So this was a great star-studded field, and Carolina did really, really well in it, despite not taking the victory. All right, guys. That was so much to get through, but we did it. We made it. And now we gear up. I hope you have a good Monday. It's going to be a long Monday because you got to wait. Yeah, I'm already nervous for this game tonight. I'm just telling you right now. But I feel like Carolina, despite how difficult it's going to be, is going to have a good shot at it. We will go live right after the game as always, so make plans to tune in. I will have the link for that dropped on Discord and on social media, so watch out for that as well. Speaking of, if you're not subscribed to the show, do it right now on YouTube if you're watching. Help us get to 10 and 3. 10,000 subscribers in the first 3 years of the show. We're less than 200 away from making that happen. Thank you to all of you who have already done it. If you haven't, hit it right now. Also, come join the Locked On Tar Heels Insiders, man. It's a great way to go in depth with this show. That link is in the show notes, as is the link for Locked On Tar Heels Discord. We'd love to see you there as well. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk again tonight after the game. We'll see you then. But for now, peace.